I'm assuming everyone can see my screen, the PowerPoint. If you can't, let me know. So yes, thank you very much for joining us. I saw the amendments coming out to the Logan planning scheme, and they are going to change a lot. There's going to be new opportunities, potentially lost opportunities. So I thought we'd do a very quick kind of rundown of those amendments just to see exactly what they're going to mean for you. So I know that council have done the same thing. They did an industry forum last week about the amendments. So I can give you a bit of an insight as to where council's coming from too. But this is probably more primarily focused on how it actually affects your property and your property development journey. So I've force muted everyone, but if you've got any questions or anything, please chuck them in the chat, and then probably we'll get to a question section in this presentation, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So let's get going. Obviously, disclaimer, I'm not council, and so nothing I say represents council. This is all just general information only. The planning scheme amendments haven't been adopted and they're still open to public consultation. So everything that we're talking about here is subject to change at any moment. So if you do have any site-specific inquiries, please get in touch with us via that email there. So this morning, I'll be looking at just a general overview of the amendments, and then a deep dive into the housing and lot diversity amendment, which is the one that's really going to change it for the property developers out there. We'll look at what changes there are for reconfiguring a lot, dual occupancies, multiple dwellings, talk a little bit about the new and lost opportunities, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion at the end. So who am I? I think if you're here, you probably know who I am, but I'll just give you a quick rundown. So my name's Alex Steffen. I'm a private consultant, town planner and educator. I've Bachelor of Urban Environmental Planning, director of one of the directors at Steffen Town Planning, founder of Properties, and the director and founder of URPEC, which is what we're presenting on today. So URPEC is the Urban and Regional Planning Education Centre, and we provide specialist training and professional development for town planners and property developers specifically. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but we're located in East Brisbane, so that's a blurb, as you can see behind me, and we also just opened an office in the Ipswich CBD. Fortunately, not affected by any of the floods. I'm very lucky, but our heart goes out to everyone who has been. So what do? I educate, obviously, do things like this. I advocate for planning on LinkedIn, add me on LinkedIn. I like to get some conversations going there on a daily basis. It's my job to get development approvals and advise people on their potential developments. So we're going to talk today about the proposed amendments to the Logan planning scheme. So these got dropped a couple of weeks ago. I think everyone was kind of expecting something to happen since council got formed. There was a big pushback on a lot of the developments happening out through Park Ridge, and developers were somewhat taking advantage of the average lot size requirements, and we were expecting some kind of amendment. To be honest, I was expecting something a lot more negative than what it is. So let's have a look at it. So firstly, there is quite a lot of amendments to the scheme proposed. So there's a mixed use zone amendment that changes a lot to do with where what the mixed use precincts are. Previously, I think there's only one precinct, whereas now there's a whole bunch. So there's quite a bit there. There's a healthcare service precinct, amendment that will change a lot through kind of Logan Lee area for healthcare services. There's the housing and lot diversity amendment, and that's the one that we're going to be diving into today. And then obviously that all results in a major planning scheme amendment. So that's where, kind of all combines into one big major amendment. So there's a link there that you can see. All you need to do is Google, have your say Logan or Logan scheme planning scheme amendment. Then you should be able to find it. Unfortunately, the submissions close this Friday. So you have to make a submission by this Friday if you want to have your say on any of those amendments. So if you need any help, get in touch, but I think everyone should be able to get in touch with council directly. So yes, this is what we're going to be looking at today. So firstly, let's look at the changes that the planning scheme's proposing for the minimum lot sizes. So currently in the small lot precinct, so they're actually changing. So the low density zones are pretty much what covers the majority of Logan for a start. So in the small lot precinct, currently there's no minimum lot size. You can't have rear lots, but the average lot size is 350 square meters. Now so that means that you could have 180 square meter lots, 200 square meter lots, so long as you had then one big lot offsetting your average. So this is where people were kind of taking advantage of that situation. So councils now put in a minimum lot size of 300 square meters and no average lot size is what they're proposing. So you're not going to be able to, for example, if you had half your site's flooded, you couldn't offset the flood lot with the density or the average lot size for your other lots. So you couldn't have, under the new amendments, you can't have 20 180 square meter lots and one 10,000 square meter lot, but then the average is still 350. So now all of those lots need to be 300 square meters. And then there's an asterisk down the bottom there that now there's going to be an amendment to vary the widths of those allotments. So when you have 10 or more, then you need to have varying widths and lot sizes in a row. So it kind of, the plan is to break it up. That's somewhat happening now, but it's going to be hard written into the code. So moving into the suburban precinct, it's pretty much the same. Probably the most notable thing is the minimum lot size in the suburban precinct was 350. It's now gone up to 400, but they've reduced the rear lot size from 600 to 500, and they've got rid of the average lot size requirement. So that basically means instead of needing 1,000 square meters to subdivide now, you only need 900. And the lots can be narrower. So by removing that average lot size, again, you're going to get in trouble if you're trying to do a larger development and take advantage of some average lot size requirements. Low density village, somewhat the same. 500 square meters minimum, still 500 square meters minimum, 600 rear lots, 500 rear lots now are being proposed. And then they've got rid of, again, that average lot size requirement. So that kind of goes through that. There's a typo there. The minimum rear lot size is not 500 square meters in the park residential precincts. That would be 5,000 square meters there. So there's quite, you look at it and you go, well, these amendments are pretty minor. They're not really going to change too much. But it really does. So if we're looking at the low density suburban zone, for example, as I said before, you only need 900 square meters now instead of 1,000 square meters to subdivide. And then if for 3 lots, you only need 1,400 square meters opposed to 1,500 square meters. So you look at that and go, well, where's the opportunity? All you need to do is spend 5 minutes scrolling around the interactive mapping and you'll discover, so for example, every single lot that's on that screen here, every single one of those is about 1,450 square meters. So prior to this amendment, all of those sites cannot be subdivided into more than 2 lots. So now all of a sudden, this entire street, you can do 3 lots. So you can actually see people have subdivided into 2 lots already. All of those could be 3 lots under these proposed amendments. So as much as it's 100 square meters, that's a very important 100 square meters. It's going to open up a lot of development potential through those kind of Marsden and surrounding suburb regions. So if we look at the small lot precinct, again, instead of needing 600 square meters, instead of needing 700 square meters, you only need 600 square meters now. So, again, a lot of these smaller lots are going to be able to be subdivided. And then when you start going larger and larger and larger lots and more subdivisions, then, you only need 900 instead of 1,050. So there's, again, a lot of opportunities where there's all of these sites which aren't just under 700 square meters. So previously you couldn't subdivide them, whereas now you can. So it's certainly something that's going to open up more opportunities. As I said, I think where this will really see the effect of this is in the larger subdivisions where you can't offset your average lot sizes by using a big balance lot. So that I think will create some issues, and you also can't what I call density hack with these minimum lot sizes. So previously, you might be able to use a balance lot and leave that for a further subdivision later, because the average lot sizes would, kind of catch you. But now there's no point in doing that because it's just no average requirement. It's just minimum lot sizes. And then again, with that variation in the frontages and widths, then you can't, stack a whole bunch of small lots together to increase your yield. So you're going to have to space them out. You're going to have different lot widths and sizes. And the idea is to, if you look in that image, it's that's essentially what they're trying to not let happen. They want a big range of density, a big range of housing styles throughout. I'm just having a quick look at the comments. PJ has asked about the third or fourth lot to have different widths. You'd have to read the amendment. It's actually quite long, that part about the variation in lot widths. But if you drop me an email, I can have a look at it and give you some more details. So that's pretty much it for reconfiguring a lot. It's those 4 zones and precincts that are changing. So seemingly not a lot, but those zones and precincts cover a lot of the Logan City Council region. So moving now into dual occupancies, which is a very, very common kind of development in Logan. Fortunately, auxiliary units are not changing. I think they've done their amendments to that, so they're not changing any requirements for auxiliary units. So that's kind of your duplex on the same title, dual key, I think is what a lot of people call them. So no changes there, but there are changes to what you can do with the dual occupancy. The main things are that there's no corner provisions anymore. So previously, if you're in a corner, you could have a high density, and it also removes any reference to equivalent dwellings. So if you know what an equivalent dwelling is currently, it's basically, a 3 or more bedroom dwelling is one equivalent dwelling. 2-bedroom dwelling is 0.7 of an equivalent dwelling, and a 1-bedroom dwelling is 0.5 of an equivalent dwelling. So at the moment, if we just look at, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but if you look at the low density suburban zone, you can have 20 dwellings, equivalent dwellings per hectare. So that's basically 1 dwelling per 500 square meters. Using that equivalent dwelling ratio, you could have, for example, if 1 bedroom is only 0.5 of an equivalent dwelling and you're only allowed 1 per 500 equivalent dwelling, but how many times can I say equivalent dwelling? Then you really then going to you could hack it to say, well, instead of having two duplexes or one duplex with 2 units over 1,000 square meters, you get 2 1-bedroom duplexes and end up with 4 units. So there was a way that you could kind of hack that density. The most notable thing that's happening is, getting rid of that equivalent dwelling ratio and just having minimum lot size requirements, and they've got rid of those corner provisions. Generally, all of this is good news, in my opinion. So if we're looking at the low density suburban precincts, you needed 1,000 square meters for your duplex, whereas now you only need 700 square meters where you're sharing a common wall, which is pretty much how all of them are built anyway, or 800 square meters when not sharing a common wall. So if you look at, if you were on a corner, then, you could do a duplex on 700 square meters. Now you can just do that anywhere. You don't have to be on a corner. So there should be a lot more opportunity for duplexes in these proposed amendments. So, there are going to be some new opportunities. If you had 1,100 square meters, you could now subdivide that into 2 and do a self-accessible or accepted development duplex on one. So previously you needed 1,350 square meters. Now you only need 1,100 square meters. So, basically we're getting more density than what is currently in the planning scheme. And that's just kind of visualizing that a little bit. So you can see on the left here, that's what it is now. If you wanted to do a 1 to 2 lot subdivision of duplex, you'd need that 1,350. This is in a suburban precinct, whereas now you would only need 1,100 square meters. So certainly more opportunity to get a higher density out of smaller sites. And if you start scaling that up and using the auxiliary unit provisions, you can really start density hacking. So if you had, currently if you had 2,350 square meters, this is the kind of development that you could probably get away with using both the average lot size requirement and then also the duplex requirement. So this is kind of best case scenario, in my opinion, when you've got a site of this size. So you've got 350 minimum at the front, 2 500 square meter lots at the rear, exclusive of the access easements, and then 1,000 square meter lot at the back where you could do a duplex. So you're still meeting that minimum lot size, a minimum average lot size of 500 square meters, but you're still getting 2 auxiliary unit sites and a duplex site. So you're ending up with 5 dwellings or 7 rentable units. Whereas under the amendments, you can actually have a smaller site, do the same thing and end up with 6 dwellings instead of 5 and 8 rentable units. So you can have a duplex at the back, duplex in the middle, and a house and an auxiliary unit on both front lots. So again, we're getting higher yields out of the proposed amendments, so long as we're kind of carefully looking at it. And the only reason that that's possible is because of the removal of that average lot size requirement, and then the removal of the equivalent dwelling requirement for a duplex. So pretty good wins there. What about multiple dwellings? We don't see a lot of multiple dwelling developments happening in the low density zones, which is what they're proposed to change. But really, they're increasing the maximum density that you can have. So they're keeping that equivalent dwelling ratio. And all they're doing, so it looks great. It's like, oh, wow, it's gone from 20, in the suburban precinct, 20 dwellings per hectare to 25 dwellings per hectare. What a win. Really, all they're doing is aligning that density with the minimum lot size requirement. So there's not really a lot of opportunity or reason still to do a multiple dwelling development, but it doesn't, you can still density hack it. So by offsetting your density with a large parcel of land. So that's probably where I think, and you can do that now. So that's kind of what isn't changing, but because they're increasing the density, you can actually still get more units. So for example, if you had a 10,000 square meter site, 8,000 square meters of it is flooded, you can still have the entire density of that 10,000 square meter site in the 2,000 square meters left over if you were doing a multiple dwelling. If you were doing a subdivision, you can't do that. So that's kind of where the changes are happening. I have this conversation a lot with our clients at Stephen Town Planning. Should you be looking at doing a multiple dwelling in these suburban precincts or these low density zones? In my opinion, it almost just never ever makes sense. And I thought, it would be valuable, as much as this is the current situation too, just to have a look at what it looks like. So just say we've got a 1,200 square meter site in the suburban precinct. That basically will let you do 3 units. So 3 multiple dwelling development, 3 townhouses. But if we were to subdivide that same site, and you can have a 400 square meter site at the front and a 700 to 800 square meter site at the back, that will give you an allotment and a duplex site. So you still end up with 3 dwellings, but you end up with 3 titles, but one of them is on a freehold allotment. So if you then again do the old density hacking trick, then you could make the front lot 450 square meters, the rear lot 750. You could do an auxiliary unit on the front lot, and then on the rear lot you could still do a duplex. So you end up with 4 dwellings and 3 sellable ones. So if you're after rental yield, then it still doesn't make sense to do a multiple dwelling, and you'd still want to subdivide it and do the auxiliary unit and duplex. So a lot hasn't changed there. It's kind of in my opinion, a bit of a pointless amendment to the scheme, changing the multiple dwelling. But I will expect to see people kind of taking advantage of that equivalent dwelling ratio in the larger developments, whether flood affected or affected by koala habitat through Park Ridge and Logan Reserve. So are there any new opportunities or lost opportunities? Let's have a look. So as I've been kind of going on about, with the removing that average lot size requirement, that means that you might not be able to offset your average density, average lot size. So if you do have a big flood affected property and 8,000 square meters is flooded, you can't then just cram all of your density into the 2,000 square meters if you're doing a subdivision. So you can't go, this one's 8,000 square meters, all of these are 350, so therefore the average is still 500 because we're using that 8,000 square meter site. Can't do that anymore. The minimum is just going to be 400 square meters, and you've got to have a variation. So as much as the minimum is 400, you're going to have, a 12.5 meter wide site, a 15 meter wide site. So the average lot size is going to vary from 400 square meters and up, opposed to 350. But you can still do that with multiple dwellings. So I'm going to be expecting that there will be, advice coming out now, which I've never had to give before, to say, if you have one of those large sites, have you thought about doing a townhouse development and then subdividing that existing townhouse development later to avoid, which is a thing that you can do in Logan. There's no amendments to the auxiliary unit requirements. That's a huge win, in my opinion. We don't want to get rid of the dual key stuff. That's very popular. There's no inclusion of rooming accommodation, which I've had a lot of inquiries about over the last couple of years. In the industry forum with Logan City Council, I did raise that as a topic, and they basically said there is a new planning scheme in the works, and they will raise rooming accommodation as a potential land use then. So you can do rooming accommodation, I should note, in Logan. It just needs to basically be in a low medium density residential zone. So you can't have them through suburbs like you do in Brisbane. So, I don't think we're losing necessarily any existing opportunities. That there are those tight sites that might, get very tight if the amendments go through. But generally, I think, as I've you'll probably gather from my discussion, that I think the densities are going to be increasing and there's going to be more opportunity for more development. So overall, I don't think you should be scared of these amendments, but I think you obviously need to know what they mean for you, and that's why you're here. So what next? Obviously, have your say. If you've got any any issues with those amendments, then you have until this Friday. So that's 2 days from now, till 11:59 p.m. To have your say. You can click that link there. Have your say logan.com.au, and you should be able to get through to the proposed changes to the scheme, which I've put an image of on the right. Just a reminder, there are more amendments. So we've only had a pretty deep dive into the housing and lot diversity amendment. We've pretty much covered all of the amendments there, but there are a lot more to do with healthcare services, the mixed use zone, and then a major planning scheme amendment. So the major amendment will likely change zones of places, update the cadastral mapping, create new neighborhood precincts. So there's going to be quite a lot in that actual major amendment that all of it is definitely worth a read if you do a lot in Logan. If it does get adopted and your amendments haven't been listened to and you've got a development that's now screwed, there is superseded planning scheme requests that you can make. Over at Stephen Town Planning, we can help you do that, or your planner can do that, or if you are a planner, you can do that yourself. And depending, in the past, when Logan changed something like this, they're fairly open to those planning scheme, superseded planning scheme requests. So I wouldn't shy away from doing that if you do have a site that is going to be negatively impacted. So we'll probably see a bit of that happening through, I think, Park Ridge, Logan Reserve, all those kind of areas where there are a lot of koala habitat and flooding. So you will want to take advantage of that average lot size requirement and not, adopt the minimum. And so, yeah, keep an eye on that. And when will all of this happen? We've been told it'll be in the middle of this year, but history will say that sometimes these things happen overnight. Sometimes they take 2 years to happen. So we're expecting it the middle of this year. So sometime between June and July. But just be cautious that I remember when Brisbane adopted their city plan in 2014. They were talking about it for ages, and then all of a sudden, I woke up one morning, went to work, and it was like, oh, the planning scheme's changed today, and no one knew it was going to happen. So just keep an eye on it. Obviously, it's our job as planners to make sure our clients are aware of it, so you don't need to worry about that too much. So I thought let's have a quick look, see if there's any questions. So there's a question from Aaron about properties. Yes, properties will be updated as soon as the planning scheme amendments are changed, so you can look out for that. Lachlan's asked, do lot sizes include area for access driveway easements? That is, are they included in the lot area? So no changes have been made to that. So for your rear lots, the 500 square meters minimum, that's exclusive of that access area. So the plans that I had up before probably isn't a good representation of those lot sizes. But yeah, so the rear lot sizes will still be excluding that access handle in easement, whereas the front lots are still including. So it's only those rear lots that don't have access to a road directly, where they won't be included. So does anyone have any further questions or comments? I can allow everyone to unmute if anyone has anything to say. If you've got something to say, chuck it in the chat now and I can unmute you. All right. Hopefully I didn't bore everyone. It's I was saying earlier in the office, it's kind of a not a super exciting, riveting topic talking about planning scheme amendments, but I hope it wasn't too bad for you. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't come on here and say, I am here on behalf of Stephen Town Planning for the Urban and Regional Planning Education Centre. As I've said, we provide specialised education and professional development for property developers. So we actually have a site finding course for the Logan City Council region. So that's $350. You can go on there, do it as you like, and it does get updated when the planning scheme updates. So as you can see on the left here, this will basically teach you absolutely everything you need to know to find a good development site in Logan and make sure it's not a lemon. So it teaches you what I know, essentially. So check that out. Hang on, we do have a question. Kevin, thanks, mate. Thanks for joining. Cheryl, thank you very much. We've got Kabai has asked, how many times can we extend a DA? How long's a piece of string? Unfortunately, it just really depends on the circumstances. So if you need to extend a DA, get in touch with your planner. Lachlan has asked, did your example show a minimum lot size of 450 in the low density suburban zone? I thought the amendment was to 400, therefore a minimum 1 and 2 lot subdivision would be 800, not 900. Yes, Lachlan, you are correct. So I did show 450 because that would then allow you to do the auxiliary unit there. But no, you are correct that the minimum lot size would be 800 square meters. The issue is you'd need a 25 meter frontage to do that. And I don't know, I have very rarely, if ever, come across a site in Logan where it's 25 meters in width and 800 square meters. So so it has to basically be a battle axe allotment. And I don't see a lot of opportunity for general splitters, which happen through Brisbane. Owen has asked, is there any flood updates to Logan City Council? So there is a massive flood amendment happening. So get in touch with council if you're anywhere near a flood in Logan. That's not going to happen for a bit longer. So that's not proposed in this amendment, I don't believe. But it is something you need to be cautious of. And we've had sites that the flood has increased by 1.5 meters or 2 meters. So, previously you thought it's just going to be the small section at the back. And now it's literally the entire site. Sequinda, you want to ask a question? Let me see if I can find you and unmute you. Hang on. I'm not sure how to do this.
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, gotcha.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank Alex. It's great presentation. Yeah, very good stuff. The question I want to ask is, like, say if we have 2 side-by-side 350 lots on a corner.
Yep.
Is it possible to amalgamate them and make it a duplex and for the 600 and add that another 100 square meters to another lot to make it like another 400 and make it as a duplex site as well?
Yes.
With a new one, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yep, I know where you're coming from. Yeah, you could. Yep. So you could either do that as an amendment to the existing approval, or you could just lodge a whole nother approval. So yeah, there will be potential. I don't know if in that circumstance, you'd probably be better off leaving it as the 2 350s because you're only going to still end up with a duplex opposed to 2 freehold allotments. But yeah, if you can then squeeze that 100 square meters onto another site to give yourself the potential to do another duplex, then yeah, that's where you can really take advantage.
That's what I'm looking at, but I'll talk to you offline after this one to see like what is the possibility we can do with the new amendments. Yeah, once they are in force. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that. And I should probably mention, these are proposed amendments. Everything that we've just talked about could completely change. So it's finishing public consultation this Friday, and then it'll go through a month or 2 of internal review of all their submissions, and then Logan will be happy with it. They send it to the state government. The minister has to give it the okay. So there's a lot of process between now and then for this to happen, but it's pretty rare that they would change something from this point.
Yeah, mother. No, it's a great stuff. Like if it's in a pipeline, we definitely weigh all the options to see what is the best possible thing we can do, considering the time and all the processes in between.
Yep.
But I think it's worth giving it a try to at least brainstorming to see if it has any merit once it's enforced to get a better yield. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Yes, thanks for that, and we'll talk offline.
Yep, sure. Thank you.
Yep. Someone has asked, is there a government website where we can find the planned new services infrastructure? You could have a look at the Logan City Council LGIP, which is the local government infrastructure plan. That's basically where it has all the planned infrastructure upgrades. So have a look there. In the planning scheme, there is a whole list of the full rollout and what's been allocated money to actually happen and when it's going to happen. But yeah, nothing's set in stone, unfortunately, when it comes to LGIP. So you can check that out. If you just search LGIP, which is LGIP, Logan City Council, you should be able to find it. And someone's asked a question about retail shop planning scheme amendment. 12 meters maximum height allowable, current height's only 2 stories, there's a chance it could be uplifted. That's probably more of a specific question I'll have to have a bit more of a look into, so please flick me an email and I'll be happy to have a look. So we'll call it there. How long did we go for? Half an hour. Hopefully it's been a good start to your day. We didn't chew up too much of your time, so please add me on LinkedIn. Email me if you have any questions. Please don't call us because of the flooding. We're a bit in and out of the office at the moment. So please flick me an email if you need anything. Visit our website, urpec.com.au. You'll learn a lot on there and you'll be a step ahead of everyone else if you get on there and upskill and learn. So we have town planning firms who use our courses to train their younger staff. We have engineering firms who use it for CPD, and we have a lot of property developers who also use it to keep up to date. And that means that they know themselves whether a site can be developed opposed to having to call me on Monday. So it's good that they can do their own research over the weekend. So if you need anything else, feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and we'll talk soon. I'll just chuck my email in the chat if anyone needs to get in touch. All righty, have a good day, everyone. Thanks. Bye.